Hey guys, before this video starts, I just want to let you know that this video is just for fun. I'm not taking any specific digs at NFL fans. But without further ado, let's check out each NFL fan base ranked from 32 to 1. Starting off here with the Los Angeles Chargers. They're at the number 32 spot because they really have no fans. They play in a soccer stadium, and the away teams usually at their games have more people in the stands. So sadly, they're at number 32. If they were still the San Diego Chargers, they probably would be higher because San Diego fans do really love the Chargers. LA, not so much. So at the number 32 spot, let's get an obligatory Dean Spanos. At number 31, I have the Tennessee Titans. And it's because they're a relatively young franchise. I know they switched over from the Houston Oilers, but all the Houston fans kind of dipped when the Texans were created. And now they don't have that many fans, especially because Tennessee doesn't have that many big cities, so the fans are kind of spread out, and they haven't had that much success over the years. I know they went to that one Super Bowl, but other than that, they haven't been that good. So that's why I have them at the number 31 spot. At number 30, I have the Los Angeles Rams, and although they went to a Super Bowl and are building their fan base, they still don't have that many fans in LA. I know that a few decades ago they played in LA, but not all those fans are retained, and a lot of new people come and go through LA every year, so not many people are really into football there, but they are growing their fan base and they're getting better, but that's why they're at the 30 spot. At number 29, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars fans, and that's because they live in a relatively small city and not much population, so not that many fans. Also, they haven't really been good over the years, not too good as a team itself, but they are improving steadily, and hopefully with the signing of Nick Foles, they can get better and get some more fans. At number 28, I have the Kansas City Chiefs fans, and that's because they don't really have that many fans either. And although they're improving as a team, getting more fans, the city doesn't really support the team as much, and the state itself doesn't really care. I know you're going to say that they have the loudest stadium, blah, 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 whatever, but that's because their stadium's built that way to have a lot of noise. It doesn't count. They're still at number 28. At number 27, I have the Cincinnati Bengals, and that's because no one really in Cincinnati cares about the Bengals. I mean, they have a few core fans, but overall, no real casual fans really root for the Bengals. And they're not really that special. Their team's pretty mediocre, so that's why they're at the 27th spot. At number 25, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers fans, and that's because, once again, it's a small city in Florida. There aren't that many people living there, so there won't be that many fans. And they haven't been good for a very long time. I know they won the Super Bowl, I believe, in 2002. But other than that, their franchise doesn't really have much success. And that's why they don't have that many fans, in my opinion. So that's why I have them at the 26th spot. At the 25 spot, I have the Arizona Cardinals. And this is just really sad. They've been mediocre for, forever. I'm pretty sure they're one of the oldest teams in the NFL. And they have still yet to win a Super Bowl. And their fans are just kind of normal with mediocrity. They're just used to it, you know? So that's why I have them at the number 25 spot. At number 24, I have the Factory of Sadness, or better known as the Cleveland Browns. But as you know, they are an upcoming team, and it looks like they're getting more and more fans, especially casual ones, bandwagon fans if you could say. So that's why I have them at the 24 spot. They have a pretty strong core, the Dog Pound, but other than that, they don't have that many fans, but it looks like it's rising. At number 23, I have the Minnesota Vikings fan base, and let's be honest, football isn't the number one sport in Minnesota. It's actually hockey. They love hockey there. Not as many football fans, so they just go to Wild games, not really Vikings games. That's why I have them at the number 23 spot. At number 22, I have the Detroit Lions fans, and I gotta be real with you guys, it's pretty sad they're up in Detroit. None of their sports teams are really that good, including the Lions. Their best season is 6-10. And that's what fans basically expect every year. They never really expect them to go any farther. That's why their fan base isn't that great. It's pretty small relatively to other cities with that population. So that's why I have them at the 22 spot. At 21, I have the Houston Texans fan base. And that's because they're a relatively young fan base. The team only started in 2002, so they're still trying to grow their fan base. There aren't that many people into it. There's some, I guess, Tennessee Titans fans from the Houston Oilers. I'm not really sure how that works down there, but that's why I have them at the 21 spot. They just need to mature, get more fans, get a better team, you know? At number 20, I have the New York Jets fan base, and that's because they're basically just a little brother to the New York Giants. I really don't know how people choose their teams in New York, but I can definitely tell that less people choose the Jets. There are way more New York Giants fans in New York. The Jets have some pretty diehard fans like Fireman Ed, but their fan base isn't as big as the Giants, and for a city like New York, you'd expect them to have a lot of fans. Fortunately, that's why I have to put them at the number 20 spot. At number 19, I have the Buffalo Bills fan base, and that's because they're just a really small town in the city of New York. The city's not that big. Maybe they might have some fans from like Toronto or Canada in general, but their fan base isn't that big, and they haven't really been good at all, really, through history. I know they made 4 Super Bowls in a row, but unfortunately they didn't win anything, so that's why I have them at the number 19 spot. At number 18, I have the Baltimore Ravens fan base, and surprisingly, they're pretty high up, considering they're still a relatively young team, and their previous fans basically like the Baltimore Colts. But because the Ravens have been pretty successful since they were in Baltimore, they've kind of built a pretty good fan base. So that's why I have them at the number 18 spot. At number 17, I have the Oakland Raiders, and that's because they have a pretty dedicated fan base from the years that they were successful under Al Davis. Like, they had several runs in the Super Bowl and won a lot of them too. Unfortunately, if I make this list next year, they will probably be last because they're moving to Las Vegas and all the Oakland Raiders fans are kind of leaving. And Vegas, I don't know how many fans they really have. So that's why I have the Raiders at the number 17 spot. At number 16, I have the Carolina Panthers fan base, and that's because they're a pretty average fan base. It's not too big, not too small. They like the team a fair amount. No one really hates them that much. So that's why I have them at 16, right in the middle. At number 15, I have the Seattle Seahawks fan base. And I know you're going to say that, what about the 12th man and all that stuff? Well, their stadium's designed to be really loud, and that's why they have the 12th man thing. But overall, the people in Washington and Seattle in general, kind of free-flowing. They don't really care about their team as much as maybe other cities in the NFL do. So that's why I have them at the number 15 spot. At number 14, I have the Miami Dolphins fan base, and that's because they have just a lot of fans from when they were good under Don Shula and Dan Marino. They kind of just stay there, so that's why they're Miami Dolphins fans. If the Miami Dolphins really started today, this year, or whatever, they probably wouldn't have that many fans because no one in Miami really cares about sports. Hate to break it to you. But that's why I have them at the 14th spot. At number 13, I have the Atlanta Falcons fan base, and they've been a consistently good fan base. They really root for their team, and the dome's always pretty loud. Unfortunately, the Falcons have really let their city down year after year. They've made the Super Bowl, but never really won it. That's why I have them at the 13th spot. At number 12, I have the Indianapolis Colts fan base, and that's because there's a lot of fans from the Peyton Manning era, and they're still fans because that wasn't that long ago. So because of him, they built up a pretty strong fan base, and they have a pretty big one overall. So that's why I have the Colts at number 12. At number 11, I have the Washington Redskins, and although the Washington Redskins haven't been a good team for a very long time, all the fans are really into the team, and they bond together over their hatred of the owner and the hatred, I guess, of the team name. I'm not sure about that one. Overall, they're a good fan base, they're really loyal, and they love the team, even though they have been pretty bad for a while. At number 10, I have the New Orleans Saints fan base, and that's because they go really hard. You know, they party real hard down in New Orleans. They really love their team. They show a lot of passion. They love Drew Brees and the Drew Brees era of the Saints, and they've been consistently good, so the fan base has been growing, and that's why I have them at the number 10 spot. At number 9, I have the San Francisco 49ers fan base, and that's because they have a really strong fan base from the Joe Montana, Steve Young eras. They won a lot of Super Bowl those decades, and they were just a dynasty, and a lot of the fans stayed. They're big 49ers fans, and now as the team's getting a little bit better, hopefully they stay and grow the fan base a little bit more. That's why I have them at the number 9 spot. At number 8, I have the Denver Broncos fan base, and surprisingly, their fans are really passionate and are really into the team. They go to every game, and they support their players, even though they don't really have a good quarterback right now, but their defense is pretty good, and they're growing as a team, so hopefully the fan base grows as well, and that's why I have them at the number 8 spot. At number 7, I have the Chicago Bears fan base, and that's because they're in Chicago. It's the third largest city in the U.S., and they just have a lot of people, a lot of fans, are passionate for the team, and they go die hard. They have a real passion for Mike Ditka and just any team in general. They haven't been good for a while, but they did make the Super Bowl against the Colts, I think, in 2006. And it looks like with their new offense and new team, looks like they're improving. So hopefully the fan base gets built as well. At number 6, I have the Green Bay Packers fan base. And it really goes to show, this is the smallest market, but their fan base is so big and so loyal that the NFL decided to keep a team in the smallest market. And it's smaller than many other cities that could potentially have NFL teams. However, the fans are so passionate. They love the team because the team's been winning for many years, for decades. And they've had consistent good quarterback play. So that's why I have them at the number 6 spot. At number 5, I have the New York Giants fan base. And that's because New York fans, as we all know, are very passionate about their sports. The Giants are one of those teams in New York, so they're passionate about it. It's a huge city, has a lot of people, a lot of fans. So that's why I have them at the number 5 spot. At number 4, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers fan base because they've just had so many decades of consistent quality football that the fans just keep on piling up and the fan base keeps growing. Once again, Pittsburgh is kind of a small market in the NFL, but because their teams have been so good, their fan base is so diehard. The Steel Curtain, as many of us know, they are going to stay and they're going to be at the number 4 spot. At number 3, I have the Philadelphia Eagles, and I might be biased here, but they're the hardest, most diehard fans in the whole NFL. They really go for it. And I know everyone's going to say they throw batteries at Santa or snowballs or whatever, but they're just so passionate. They boo when the team's doing bad and absolutely go nuts when the team's great. So that's why they're at the number 3 spot. At number 2, I have the New England Patriots fans, and they have the benefit of being a Boston sports town, a greater New England sports town because of all the many people that live there. And they've just been so good for like 2.5 decades. They've just built a huge fan base, and they just are really good fans. They really support the team, and obviously who can't love Tom Brady? So that's why I have him at the number 2 spot. At number 1, it really saddens me to say this, but the Dallas Cowboys fan base is the biggest and the most loyal and the best fan base in the NFL because they just really go hard. They're America's team. Basically, anywhere in the country, you can find a Cowboys fan. They're everywhere. Cowboys fans, they just really love the team. Somehow they became America's team. I don't know how. I wasn't alive back then, but they are, and that's why they're number 1.